Hi, I'm Scott Hoffer. Thank you to BAMSA for inviting me to speak. I am the founder of a company called Forklift Studios in New York City and the creator of an iPhone app called Tricky Bridge. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what Tricky Bridge is and what it's trying to do and give some results. And hopefully that will be useful to anyone who's interested in online bridge education for young people or youth recruitment. So Tricky Bridge is an iPhone iPad app that will soon be on Android that is designed to teach bridge basics to absolute beginners. Young people who don't even know what a trick is, this is the app for them. It is designed to make bridge look appealing with a heavy emphasis on graphics, animation, user experience, usability, and so on. And it's designed to make bridge fun as quickly as possible. The app is targeting a much more mainstream audience than most bridge software is. It's trying to be competitive not with the best bridge apps, but with the best games on the App Store. So the reason I wanted to make this app, I'm just an intermediate bridge player, but I love the game and I'm always talking it up to my peers, and their response is always, okay, sounds great, how do you play? And that's where they get stuck. I realized there was no resource for me to send them to confidently. Nothing that really met their needs. There was nothing online, nothing digital that was designed specifically to roll out the red carpet for young beginners. You know, the way that young people explore new experiences is through their phones or through their computers. And what they were looking for is a free app or a free website that looks like fun. Learning from a teacher in a classroom is probably best, but I can't tell my friends to pay for bridge classes or buy bridge books. They're not going to do that. A few people will, but the vast majority of young people won't. They're going to be at best on the fence about learning bridge, so they really need to be persuaded. In my opinion, this problem of a lack of an online resource for onboarding is as big of a problem as Bridge's marketing problem, which is the one everyone talks about. How do we get young people interested in bridge? How do we market it to them? My question is, what happens if you succeed and suddenly there's a lot of young people Googling how to play bridge? They are going to run into a brick wall because they're not going to find the resource that meets their needs. And that marketing is going to go to waste. So that's what Tricky Bridge tries to be. Where teachers cannot scale or are expensive, Tricky Bridge is trying to be a scalable and free onboarding resource. So in terms of how we approach teaching, I've already mentioned Tricky Bridge tries hard to look like fun. In terms of how we teach, I don't approach teaching through the app from a bridge teacher's perspective. I approach it from an iPhone game designer's perspective because that's what I do for a living. I've worked on lots of different iPhone games, mostly free to download games, and mostly games that are directed at a very wide audience. Mass market games where the audience has very high expectations for quality, user experience, and for fast fun. So in any free iPhone game, it is imperative that the player is never bored, confused, or overwhelmed, or they will leave. And it's really important that they're having fun in the first 60 seconds, or they will leave. So that's a tall order for Bridge, which is a game where a lot of young beginners tend to get really confused and overwhelmed at the beginning. So we try really hard to avoid that. Tricky Bridge brings you in through a storyline. There's a setting in New York City, sort of futuristic. You meet these robot characters. They rush you to the table for your lessons, and you begin a 37-lesson education program. The lessons are very short, and they teach the play first and the bidding second. This is to get you playing cards right away and having a little bit of fun. They layer on rules and strategy very carefully. So you learn what a trick is, and you learn that the winner leads to the next trick. And then you learn about not playing a high card over your partner's high card and why that's a good idea. Things that we think of as being obvious, which really are not to a lot of young beginners who have never played a trick-taking game or a partnership game. And we try to have a lot of insight moments built in, which are moments where you feel smart because you apply something that you've learned. So if you've learned what a finesse is, maybe in the next deal, we show you a hand where you can spot a finesse without anyone telling you about it. You take the finesse, it succeeds, you feel very smart. We try to have as many of those moments as we can. The game is also gamified with a metagame, which is a reward structure that's built on top. I don't think this is super important, but it does work well in Tricky Bridge to increase engagement. So in our case, that means there are rewards between every lesson. There are collections, decks of cards you can collect. There are missions, achievements, experience points. There's the character and the storyline. And all of that ties into what's called a core loop, which is a principle in free-to-play game design. A core loop is a cyclical series of connected actions that are fun to perform over and over again. In this case, it's play, collect, advance. Play a lesson, collect a reward, advance through the storyline and the lesson map, and then on to the next lesson, rinse and repeat, play, collect, advance, play, collect, advance. That's the core loop, and it helps keep you moving forward. So the game also has a free practice mode and a robot duplicate mode that players can graduate into. The robots are designed by a former World Computer Bridge champion named Rodney Ludwig. So in terms of our results, Tricky Bridge was really only able to launch because of a grant from the ACBL Educational Foundation that allowed us to finish production. Making apps is really rough. It takes a long time, a lot of expertise, and a lot of money most of the time. I think it could have been done for cheaper. You don't necessarily need all the fancy graphics and all of that, but that was the way we approached it. But that meant that there was very little money left for marketing. And launching an iPhone game without a marketing plan is pretty dangerous because it's easy for such an app to get lost in the mix unless you have robust marketing. Normally, the way that an iPhone game is marketed, you have a mix of influencer and social media marketing, and then you have a heavy emphasis on performance marketing or user acquisition, which is where you run advertisements on Facebook, Google, Apple Search, and inside other iPhone games. The user taps the ad, it takes you to Tricky Bridge where they can download it. That is the traditional way of scaling up the audience size of any iPhone game, but it is very expensive. And we just didn't have the budget for it, so we were really relying on word of mouth. When we launched in October of 2020, we got very lucky because Apple loved the app, the people at the App Store. So they featured it on the App Store, and as a result, Tricky Bridge received 74 million impressions, which means the word bridge was put in front of App Store gamers 74 million times. That might be Tricky Bridge's biggest success, just getting the word bridge in front of a lot of people. But of course, they didn't all download it. Interest in bridge is very low. So we did get 25,000 downloads from beginners, young beginners, mostly aged 18 to 44. About 42% of them learn enough that they dip their toe into duplicate, robot duplicate. And we've taught about 450,000 total bridge lessons so far. The app has very good retention, day one retention, which is the measure of the percentage of users who come back the day after they download a game to play again. So of all the people that start playing on Monday, it's the percentage of those people that come back on Tuesday to play again. The benchmark in free-to-play games is 35% because most people play a free iPhone game for 5 minutes and then leave and never come back. Tricky Bridge has 44% day one retention for beginners, which is a sign that the app makes a good impression. And the app's sort of primary purpose is to make a good first impression on behalf of Bridge. So to that end, it felt like a big success. And I think the main thing is that it shows that even though teaching Bridge through teachers in a classroom is best, teaching through an app can be viable. And in an ideal world, we would have lots of different apps that cater to lots of different audiences that are all designed to onboard people. To teach them bridge basics, get them loving the game so that then they're in a position to go off and enjoy all the free resources that already exist online for newcomers and anyone else who already knows the rules and already has developed a love of the game. Tricky Bridge's biggest problem, I would say, is that it's not social enough. The game is Robot Bridge because we want users to be able to play whenever they want and not risk being embarrassed. We don't want to thrust our young beginners into multi-human situations where they're going to be called stupid or made to feel bad about their mistakes. But the trade-off is that there's really no social element, there's no community. So you finish your Tricky Bridge lessons, you graduate, and then what? You're just, kind of playing robot duplicate on the phone, or you're practicing by yourself. Ideally, what would happen is that Tricky Bridge or apps like it would be one step in a larger campaign, a larger onboarding funnel, where once you've learned to love Bridge and you've learned the basics, we could funnel you into a community of some kind, ideally a streaming community. Something like Twitch, where we could have lots of different Twitch streamers that you could be watching and chatting with other people your age. That would help build aspiration to get better at Bridge, and it would do the important thing of showing people having fun playing it. A lot of the people that learn through an app, they don't know how fun it is to play live at the table. They don't know how deep Bridge gets when it's played at a high level at a tournament. So really the ideal next step is there would be this robust streaming community that we could graduate beginners into. And I know there are people that are starting to stream Bridge. It feels like it hasn't been figured out completely yet, but that there is potential there. So I'm also a consultant for chess.com, which is the largest chess website. And it's worth mentioning because chess is a classic game that was very much ready for success. So when The Queen's Gambit came out last year on Netflix, interest in chess went through the roof, and chess was ready. They had all sorts of apps that were ready to go to welcome these new players who were suddenly interested in chess. They had apps for kids, they had apps for grown-ups, they had apps for gamers, they had websites and mobile apps, and they had completely figured out streaming. They had a huge Twitch community. They had famous chess players streaming chess. They had amateur chess players who were famous streamers of other games like Fortnite and Minecraft suddenly streaming chess. They had organized amateur tournaments for celebrities to play chess. And there's just a giant community. At one point, I think chess was the most streamed game on Twitch, which is incredible. So that's sort of a model, I think, for what Bridge could achieve, because if we can have that kind of robust online presence and that variety of experience and onboarding options for new players, that would be great. And then that community of streamers to graduate them into once they understand the game. So if you have any questions or you want to learn more, you can go to trickybridge.com. Or you can email me at scott@forkliftstudios.com. And thanks very much.